Welcome to Being Authentic AF. I'm Alexis Franzese, a university professor, licensed psychologist, speaker, consultant, and mom with over 20 years of experience studying authenticity. This podcast explores what authenticity means and how to embrace it in your life and relationships. It's for anyone seeking to better understand their own authenticity and how it shapes our connections with others, from kids to colleagues. Through reflections and conversations with entrepreneurs, we'll share strategies to uncover who you authentically are and want to be. Life's curveballs are opportunities to grow, adapt, and uncover or rediscover your authentic self. Join me as we explore how to know yourself, be yourself, and evolve yourself, unlocking the path to truly being authentic AF. In this episode, we'll dive deep into the concept of authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic, and where did this idea come from? How have social scientists and philosophers tackled this question? In this episode, we'll explore the philosophical, psychological, and sociological roots of authenticity, laying the foundation for our future discussions in this series. Let's get started. So let's start by asking a simple but profound question. What is authenticity? At first glance, it might seem like a simple concept. Being real, being true to yourself, right? But as we will see in this episode, authenticity is much more complex than that, and it's been a topic of deep discussion for centuries. It's a term that's evolved through history, from its origins in ancient philosophy to its more modern use in social science. The term authenticity is derived from the Greek word authentio, which means to have full power over. It also comes from the word authentes, which refers to a master or a doer. Now, obviously, this ancient usage doesn't quite capture the way we think about authenticity today. What we're concerned with now is the idea of authenticity as the enactment of one's true self. One early philosopher who discussed these themes was Socrates, who famously said, "Know thyself." For Socrates, the key to living a good life was understanding your true nature, free from the distractions of societal expectations and external pressures. Fast forward to the late 19th century, and we see a significant philosophical influence on the idea of authenticity in the work of William James, a psychologist and philosopher. William James, in The Principles of Psychology, 1890, offered one of the earliest psychological models of the self. He described the self as having two parts, the me and the I. The me is everything we can observe or reflect on, our material possessions, social identities, and spiritual beliefs. It's the self as known. The I is the knower, the active, thinking self that reflects on experience. Now, James didn't use the word authenticity, but his ideas give us language for thinking about it. That tension between the self we describe and the self doing the describing, it still shows up today in conversations about what it means to be truly ourselves. But what does it mean to be authentic in social science? How do we study authenticity as a social construct? Well, the sociological understanding of authenticity emerged in the early 20th century, particularly through the work of two towering figures, Charles Horton Cooley and George Herbert Mead. These scholars were part of the symbolic interactionist tradition in sociology, which emphasizes how society is constructed through interactions and symbols. Cooley's concept of the looking glass self introduced the idea that we see ourselves as we think others perceive us. In other words, our self-concept is shaped by how we believe we are viewed by others. So George Herbert Mead built on Cooley's work and offered a really useful way to think about the self in social life. He introduced the concept of the I and the me, different from James's concept. The me is the socialized part of us. It reflects all the expectations and norms we've absorbed from the world around us. It's how we've learned to behave, what's expected, how to fit in. The I, on the other hand, is the more spontaneous creative part, the part that pushes back, improvises, expresses our individuality in response to those norms. Now, Mead, like James, didn't use the word authenticity directly, but his theory gives us a useful foundation. If we think of authenticity as a space where the I and the me are in dialogue, not in conflict, we start to see how authenticity might emerge from that back and forth. It's about navigating who we are within the world we live. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that the idea of authenticity, as we understand it today, gained real prominence in sociology. In 1959, sociologist Erving Goffman published his iconic work, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. This book introduced the idea of social life as a stage, the dramaturgical metaphor, where we perform various roles depending on the situation. Think of it like acting in a play. The front stage is where we present ourselves to the world, while the backstage is where we can be more relaxed and authentic. Goffman's dramaturgical metaphor offers a powerful lens for thinking about authenticity, even though Goffman, like James, Cooley, and Mead, didn't use the term himself. In Goffman's view, we're always managing impressions depending on the setting. From an authenticity perspective, this raises important questions. Which version of ourselves feels most real? Who sees it? Goffman's work reminds us that what we show others doesn't always match what feels true inside, and that tension is something we all navigate. Now let's talk about Ralph Turner, who in 1976 provided a critical sociological approach on authenticity in his work, The Real Self, From Institution to Impulse. Turner examined how the notion of the true self has shifted over time from being understood in terms of institutional roles to being framed in terms of personal feelings and psychological needs. The institutional pole is about authenticity tied to social roles, your role as a student, employee, or family member. On the other hand, the impulse pole focuses on individual desires and feelings. Turner argued that society has shifted away from emphasizing the institutional self to the impulse self, where authenticity is more about personal expression than societal roles. So in this episode, we've explored the foundations of the concept of authenticity, from its ancient philosophical roots to the work of philosopher and psychologist William James, to the influential sociological theories of Cooley, Mead, Goffman, and Turner. We've seen that authenticity is not just about being real, but is a complex interplay between individual identity, societal expectations, and how we present ourselves in different situations. In future episodes, I'll delve deeper into how we measure authenticity, why it matters for mental health, relationships, and society, and the modern-day challenges of living authentically, especially in the age of social media. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Being Authentic AF. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our series wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep being Authentic AF and let that authenticity uplift and inspire others. Take care.